Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined by Daniel G, CEO, and James Sheehan, Chairman of Priority AI. Welcome, gents.
Hi, thanks for having us.
How's everyone doing today then?
Fantastic, sun's shining, busy as always.
Mad, isn't it? Is it? How long have we got? Probably a week at max, you reckon?
Probably a couple of hours.
I reckon I've got about 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months. We've had our week this week, I think.
Yeah, that's summer over. So, I mean, obviously, we're here to talk Priority AI, and I quote from your website, which is always a good place to start. Priority is a technology-driven, human-delivered platform made to help businesses grow. Every interaction is driven by a custom AI GPT, which is built and trained specifically for each customer. Activating Priority products unlocks access to unlimited use of business growth services, ranging from investor relations to commercial lending. Priority is the Swiss Army knife for SME growth. Select an icon to find out how our tools can help you focus on your priorities. So presumably anyone can demo the technology, which I'll obviously make sure I do later, but just talk us through why and how the business was formed, please, Dan.
So I guess that the why is that James and I have worked together off and on for over 10 years now, and we've worked helping private individuals manage their money, and we've also helped with public companies going out and accessing growth capital. It's been a fantastic journey. We've helped thousands of companies over the years, and both individually, private and public. But we've also seen how a lot of that capital has been deployed, and traditionally for growth companies, they're deploying it with growth advisors. And what we might see from that is anything you can think of, right? Anyone that's going to use it to kind of help a business grow. That might be an investor relations team, a public relations, social media managers, non-exec directors, corporate advisors, all these kind of people that help us as entrepreneurs, obviously growing our own business as well, fill the skill sets that we don't have and we don't want to go and employ big teams around. And we saw a lot of that capital being deployed in a way that we felt was inefficiently, but we kind of, growing our own business as well, we were engaging with the same advisors because there wasn't any alternative out there. If we wanted to grow the business, we had to go and spend money to get people in the tent, helping us drive towards the common goal. We started questioning, is there a more efficient way? Is there a way that we could access those growth advisory services at a lower price point with a kind of a quicker time to action? The answer was no. So we set out building Priority, which is a platform-based solution for businesses, whether they're private, whether they're public, whether they're big, whether they're small, any stage of their growth journey, to access those retained advisory skills for a single price point, super cheap, but using technology to make it super, super bespoke for their business.
Absolutely. So you have Sandbox, Ventures, Spotlight, Amplify, and Advisor as kind of different strands or apps within Priority. Can you just talk us through a use case of each one, please? But James, over to you, and Dan, no helping him on this one.
Very good. Thanks, guys. So, kind of as Dan touched on, we were a bit fortunate, really, because when we sat down and discussed helping build a platform, a SaaS solution for growth services for the SME market, it was just at that kind of mainstream emergence of AI technology a couple of years ago, sort of start of 2023. And that led us into the ability to try and utilize that technology by way of delivering more efficient and more cost-effective services, as Dan says. We had to think about the type of professional advisory services that people really use and really require, especially at the early stage of their journey and as they're growing as SMEs. One of those areas is things like corporate governance, for argument's sake, thinking about putting together shareholder documentation or management accounts, things of that ilk. And that's where Sandbox comes in. It's a creative tool that allows you to put together important documentation so that you can potentially become investment ready, as we kind of determine it in-house. Similarly, on the ventures front, we embarked on building relationships with some well-known corporate lending businesses, which is an unregulated area of the marketplace at the moment, whereby people can use our platform to engage with those lenders and determine whether or not they would qualify for early stage corporate lending very quickly and make applications and immediately have capital deployed into their bank account. There's also some additional functionality that sits around that, which is a data vault product that allows companies to actually put together a data vault that holds all of your important information, things like corporate presentations, and also things that you don't necessarily want to be public facing, because the battery that powers all of our platform tools is called Priority Advisor. And that's deployed generally into your community, onto your website, into things like Telegram or some of your social media sites. And that has and holds and retains all of your company information so that it can answer questions posed by stakeholders, investors, other members of your community online, similar to kind of a chat bot on your website that you will see and you would be familiar with. But this is AI driven and has solely the information about your business, and hopefully dynamic information if you go on to take a slightly bigger package with us, that draws in any new information that comes to light, whether it be a podcast like this or whether it be an RNS if you're a public company. And that information is then readily available for any of your stakeholders to go on and query and to interact with. And that feeds back onto our platform to give you a holistic view of what your community is talking about, the questions that they're asking, the information that they want to understand. And that, or some of the areas maybe where they're a little bit confused, especially, for example, again, just because of our backgrounds in public markets, if somebody puts an RNS out and you don't understand the full extent of the underlying information, you can go on and query it, and it will give you some pointers or push you to the right answers. And that, we think, is highly valuable from an educational perspective, especially for investors and the rest of the stakeholder community. So that feedback onto platform then allows us to power the spotlight area of the business, which is focused on IR and PR, and that whole kind of universe of communicating with your audience out in the world. So using social media, using Telegram, and what's valuable to your community, whether again it's educational material or whether it's just interacting on a daily basis with your community.
So hold on a minute, James. Trying to do us out of a job, or is the bot going to take the abuse instead of us?
Ultimately, guys, right? Ultimately, where we see this going is companies like the Roast PR and other social media platforms embracing our technology and utilizing it so that you can deliver better, more cost-effective services to the SME space. And that's what we really care about. That's at the heart of what we want to do. As Dan touched on at the beginning, we've raised an awful lot of money over the last, call it 10, 12 years. Me personally, I've been in the city for 18, 19 years, but really focused on the SME fundraising space probably since about 2012. So that capital comes from investors. We care about investors, and we've been working with investors for a very long time. So our experience is that quite a lot of that investor capital can be wasted on professional services, and whether that's IR and PR, not specifically with you guys, but across the board, or whether that's with brokers like us, big fees and long-term retainers that never really justify the cost. We think we can do things using technology a little bit better, and we'd like companies across that professional service spectrum to actually embrace this technology, come on platform, use it, and give their customers the benefit of, hopefully, the cost savings and reductions that they can make in terms of time, staffing, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, I was being facetious, as you know, but I agree with you.
I love it. It's a good question, right? Because it's obviously got to be on the tip of everyone's tongue, right?
Yeah. Okay, so tell us what's happened this week, James, then. So in terms of you were progressing towards an IPO. You've already done the pre-IPO a few months back, and you're progressing towards an IPO. So what has changed this week as you've been going out to get money? Obviously, somebody's approached you. So what has happened?
You will have seen probably. I mean, it was in the in one of the press articles that we were on the pathway towards an IPO. We had a fantastic response. I'm going to be really candid with you guys, and I don't know how often people are like this, but it was quite a nerve-wracking experience to go out into the market to raise capital for your own business. Considering, we're so well versed, Dan and I, doing it for other people and raising money for other people's companies. It was a very sobering experience. We spent 2 weeks, best part of 2 weeks, meeting over 40 of our city-based contemporaries, lots of stockbrokers, investors, and other groups, funds, etc. telling the story, and it was really, really well received. And we did demonstrate our technology. So we've got working live demos, and obviously the technology's there to deploy in as soon as possible, really. So we were able to demonstrate it, and the feedback was excellent. We built a book, oversubscribed book for that potential IPO. But during that period, we were approached, as you say, Kev, by Alteration Earth, as you're well aware now, because it's public, it's in the public domain, to look at a reverse takeover using them as a listed investment or a listed acquisition vehicle. That conversation obviously was interesting to us at the outset, but we were on quite a strong pathway towards IPO. And it was the fact that Dan and the team at Alteration have really gelled very, very quickly, and they could see the benefit of the technology. They could see and they were excited about what we were trying to achieve. That really lent itself to us wanting to potentially go down that path. So we explored it over the course of another couple of weeks, which was again a difficult process, spinning two plates at the same time. But we had a very, very, very good couple of weeks looking at how we could potentially pull this transaction off. And ultimately, we then had to go and speak to our underlying shareholders who'd backed us pre-IPO looking for that kind of listing, and make sure that they were happy and comfortable, and that they would want us to potentially go down this path instead. Pros and cons, obviously, to both potential pathways. But ultimately, the board collectively and our underlying shareholders all unanimously backed us going down this path. So that's where we landed.
So the situation right now is that you are using some of the pre-IPO people to get the money that is in this RNS that was discussed, that you're going to try and raise the £500,000. So you're well on the way to doing that, or if anybody is interested, they can send us an email and we'll pass it on to James and Daniel if you're interested in this proposal.
So just to jump in there and be clear, we were going on the IPO process to bring in an amount of capital that would help us put together our delivery team, our whole delivery team, and our go-to-market strategy, which is technology built, ready to deploy. We spent a couple of years, or best part 19 months, obviously getting to this stage. But we really want to focus on bringing a SaaS-focused team into the business, a team that we are confident and understand would be capable of really delivering significant growth in numbers of customers and clients over time. And that was the use of capital. That was the predominant use of capital. Obviously, we still have that capital requirement, even if we're going to go down this RTO process. The acquisition vehicle has plenty of capital in it to run the cost of listing and put the transaction to all of the relevant advisors and pay the relevant advisors. But we will still need capital to grow the business in the manner that we had envisaged. We have spoken to a number of our existing investors and others that Dan and I are very familiar with, who have already offered us significant hundreds of thousands of capital to stay private as a pre-IPO ahead of this RTO transaction, if that makes sense. So we did a pre-IPO, which a number of people participated in right at the very beginning of the year. This would be a follow-up pre-IPO, but pre-IPO looking at this RTO as a transaction rather than the previous IPO.
Okay, great. So Dan, just one last question in terms of the viability of AI. Okay, everyone's talking AI. We've got billions and trillions of dollars worth of valuation based on this AI. Are you actually going to make any money out of this? I mean, how's it going to work?
So I guess we look slightly different to a lot of the AI companies that people see and see in the press and kind of see talked about quite a lot. And actually, from my background, obviously from a technical background, the work that we're doing is quite unusual. So when people kind of hear AI, they think kind of obviously large language models, your Bard, your Geminis, ChatGPTs, which everyone's had a play with, right? Really fantastic. And 4 or 5 years ago, kind of when the Python engineers were starting to kind of move into AI, kind of prompting engines, etc., everyone was trying to have a race for who can build the most complex models, who can build models with the largest parameters. And that's kind of the race that's going on at the moment, and kind of usability. For us, when we came into this, we kind of worked backwards as a business. And we said, well, technology is actually really easy to build. And for tech people, it's easy to build. The hard part for technology businesses is convincing people to use that technology, convincing people to do something different than what they're used to. So we went the other way around. We kind of said, okay, well, where do businesses deploy cash? Where are people spending money today? Where is that pain point? And obviously, we identified growth advisors, advisory services, and we did a lot of market research over months and years of what people were paying, who they were paying it to, what it was costing. So, okay, well, how can we get that price point down? We don't want to convince people to spend money that they don't spend already. How can we actually get that money they're spending and make it smaller, more affordable, and more inclusive, so more businesses can access those services? So that's when we come into kind of the price point. So in terms of the operating margin for the business, we run, in a technology point of view, relatively low margin. From a traditional advisor point of view, a typically high margin. So our profit margin on the business is about 88, 89% working profit margin per user. So £499 per month is what we charge. There are some add-ons and some premium add-ons, but that's the very kind of lowest hanging level in kind of subscription package at 88, 89% a month. And profit margin, we make money. In terms of kind of viability of the business, again, different to a lot of tech companies, we haven't had a couple of $100 million to spend on deploying tech. We don't have a huge tech team. We own all of their IP. We've developed it all in-house in the UK, myself, predominantly building, kind of running project as CTO. We haven't sunk a lot of cost into the ground. We are business people by trade. We run our own businesses. We keep everything super lean. And we run a small team, small kind of G&A, small overhead. We break even as a business around 50 users. We've obviously got a large waiting list of customers. When you look at the addressable market, there's 5.4 million SMEs in the UK. That's the UK alone. We do have a product that can be deployed internationally and reskin relatively easily. So working through those numbers, we break even at a very low amount of users. We have very high margins. It's very quick because it's programmatic to bring customers on platform. We can bring a customer on platform in around 4 to 9 minutes. And we have a waiting list of around 650 users on that platform, which is a mix of large-scale household name international companies that we can't mention, all the way through to kind of single-person startups that are just getting started on business. So we do have a product that appeals to a whole plethora, I guess, of SMEs or people that want to start to become business owners or business founders, but also people all the way down that journey. So you can probably infer yourself how many people would use a product, how many people are paying growth advisors at the moment, whether that's 1 or maybe 7, and who it can kind of help and save money. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create a platform that gives more people a chance of winning. 1 in 2 businesses in the UK go bust within the first 12 months. If we can get that number down over the next 4 or 5 years by a percentage point, who knows? It's hundreds of millions of people that are in jobs, businesses that are functional and viable, and we've done a great job.
Okay, if the 650 that are on your waiting list, if they all sign up and pay the fees, how profitable will the business be?
We haven't released forecasts when we go out for our IPO. Yeah, you can do some quick maths. It's a significant 7-figure EBIT number.
That'd be about £2.8 million of revenue. We run the business at £350,000-400,000 unlisted at the moment. So, we'll be seeing on 2.2 million quid's worth of EBIT.
How blue sky could this be?
Well, there's 5.4 million SMEs in the UK alone. As I say, we're based in the UK, so that's our first target market. As I say, it takes 4 to 9 minutes to onboard a customer. Take 1% of the UK SME market, 54,000 users. That puts EBIT at 24 million. That's just in the UK, and that's 1% penetration for a product that so far no one's said to us, I think in kind of 2 years, no, I don't really want to save any money. I don't think I want to grow my business this year. I'm actually quite happy. If the business shrinks, I'll be quite happy. Or no, I'm really, really happy paying really high costs for my advisors. Wouldn't like to save money. So at the moment, we're kind of getting a lot of yeses. And I guess the blue sky of it is how quickly can we deploy a team large enough to service that many customers? We could service a level of customers quite happily with the size of the team now. And I guess the reason behind the Alteration Earth transaction and why, as James said, lots of transactions like this happen. However, you don't get 2 teams that gel so well with both kind of technical skill sets. And the appeal for me was, I guess, Alty's view that, okay, well, let's take a step back, guys. How do we turn this into a unicorn? Because you can really easily make it a really profitable business. Come and do your IPO and make your stakeholders very happy. But you guys want to go big, and because this has the potential to really disrupt the entire retained advisory kind of growth services industry. But we need to take a step back and say, how do we get 1 million users on platform? And what do we need to do to get there? Obviously, AIM is a dream, it's fantastic, and it gives us the ability to access that growth capital that when we start to talk about those big numbers, and when we get to that number, how do we whack a 0 on the end of it? What team do we need? What kind of technological kind of resistance and infrastructure do we need to get there? So I guess the blue sky is, as long as people keep starting businesses, as long as people keep running businesses, we're going to keep having customers.
Yeah, as we said at the beginning, on our current run rate, we can break even at 50 customers a month. Obviously, 50 customers a month at £500 is 25,000 a month, which is give or take kind of where we operate at our top end with the whole team in place. So ultimately, the blue sky is we want to go after that kind of tens of thousands of potential customers over the course of the next few years, 3-4 years. It's going to happen probably in the first year or 18 months. But if we can get the first few hundred customers on board, which is kind of our target to start with, and put a really strong go-to-market strategy in place, then who's to say we can't start pushing into those thousand numbers?
Yeah, and I noticed you mentioned, Dan, that you've got a wait list. And I think on your website it actually says join the wait list now. But what have you set a limit of? So I don't know, 400, 500. I mean, what is the limiting factor now for you not taking new customers on board and new subscriptions right now?
Well, the limiting factor was the journey to IPO, and because we wanted to kind of fit in kind of chronologically the narrative, we wanted to IPO, bring customers on platform, start deploying them. We actually built the waiting list over about 30 to 60 days at the beginning of the IPO process, around January time. We'd done our market testing, we'd done our survey, and we were confident there was appetite for it. The number that we got was significantly higher than we expected. We didn't really market it. It was kind of, it's on there as a digital kind of data capture. That number's actually significantly higher post the IPO process because we've met a lot of businesses. We've had a lot of people invest or apply to invest in the IPO who are run businesses, some of them running public companies in the UK, some private. And so actually that number is significantly higher. In terms of kind of what is the limiting factor, having the team there to scale, because we don't want to get to the point where we're at critical mass and then going out and deploying the team. So the intention is now, with the fantastic transaction with Alteration Earth, is to take a step back, build out the team. We've already identified 6 or 7 key hires, as James says, from the SaaS world, who have been there, done that, exited businesses at significant 8- and 9-figure valuations and kind of cash outs. So we'll start build that team probably very, very quickly alongside the IPO to AIM. The intention is to come to AIM with the team built, with customers on platform, with revenue in the bank, and significantly kind of more mature business in the next 4 to 6 months.
I mean, there's probably a lot of listeners thinking, well, it's AI driven. It should be just, if they're running it behind the scenes, the AI, then just turn it on and get as many customers you need. But actually, you need the infrastructure there. You need the team in place. So there is even though it's AI driven, there's still a lot of human interaction with the product.
Yeah. So our tagline is AI driven, human delivered, because, I've been in tech. I've been in fintech and kind of, reg tech for about 18 years now, maybe. And since I'm about 19, I've worked with kind of some big companies, kind of like Sony's and stuff, in the United Nations, all down to small startups. And when you say you're in tech and you meet kind of traditional advisors or consultants who say, brilliant, you're trying to get us out of a job, that's the complete opposite of our view. And James touched on it earlier. We are AI driven, human delivered. We always think that the world is going to need people. There's going to be the requirement for relationships. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes technology can't take us all the way. And what we as a business try and do is actually work out how much the technology can achieve. Is that 80%? Is it 90%? Is it 95%? Freeing up the human beings to parachute in at the very end and okay, are you comfortable with the process? Are you happy? Would you like an improved premium output? Okay, so we have premium subscriptions that come onto the platform, which is slightly dear at £999 a month. We parachute in a professional advisor, a human being, to come and deliver that premium output at the very end, and also take some of the responsibility for the output from the platform. So the idea is that we have fantastic customer service. There's always a human being there to help you, because running a business is scary. James and I have done it for the last 10, 12 years. I'm obviously running this business for the last 2. You guys are doing it. It's scary. It's probably even scarier if you don't have anyone there apart from a machine to give you some help. So the ability for us to be AI-driven, human delivered, and say, right, if you ever get stuck, if you ever get worried, if you need a chat, we are here for you. We aren't a nameless, faceless technology company. We're a community, an SME community that's here to help everyone win. And we want to win together.
Very good. My last comment would be James and Daniel have offered to do a presentation of this to anybody who's interested. So if anybody would like to take them up on that presentation in this coming week, please email us and we'll get it set up that they can demonstrate the thing in operation to you and see if either it can be of use to you or you might be interested in being involved. Thanks for your time, Daniel and James. And it all looks extremely exciting.
Thank you for having us.
Is this the next Nvidia?
Or NVIDIA.
Or NVIDIA even, sorry. Change that.
Or is it Nivea? Is it the Nivea hand cream of?
It's
AI?
Nivea. It's Nivea. It's the hand cream. It's the hand cream. It's got nothing to do with
Technology.
Do you know what?
Microchips.
We can't optimize skincare, unfortunately, Kev.
Do you know what? In my
Cantera was last week, Kev.
yeah. Do you know what? In my pension about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I held Nivea. Nvidia. I held it when it was like, I don't know, maybe 100th of its current price, and then I sold it, as you do.
Largest company in the world today, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
I think
$3.4 trillion.
Quite amazing.
More than the GDP of the UK, which is unbelievable, really. But there we go.
Unfortunately, it won't be going down either, because the processing requirements, from a technology point of view, this is an interesting point, actually. So our language models, on average, are around 1.5 to 2.5 million parameters. Large language models, ChatGPT and Bard, are about 1.7 trillion at the moment. So we basically sit kind of about 0.01% of the kind of parameters in their models. No one's ever regressed the model, so actually taken data out, because it's like pouring sand into a bucket and then suddenly you want a grain at the bottom that needs to go. No one's quite sure what the impact will have on kind of hallucinations. So in effect, the only way that AI can carry on going is by getting more complex, so adding parameters on, which means more processing requirements. And no one can produce chip at scale of NVIDIA, because I've just done the same as you, Kev. As NVIDIA,
they get the chips from Taiwan, don't they? Everything's outsourced from Taiwan, from an external company, and then they build the GPUs based on those, those processing, and then obviously use an open AI platform, from my understanding.
Yeah, well, I was just going to revert back to where we were right at the beginning, but it's crazy that the largest listed companies in the States are bigger than most of the FTSE 100. Well, I think it's even the FTSE 350 combined, aren't they?
It's the FTSE 100 combined, yeah.
Which is, I mean, is that right, gents? Should it be like that? I mean, it's a flight, I suppose, to perceived security, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's the US, isn't it, and some of these bubble valuations. But Bill Gates gave an interesting talk on it yesterday. I think he was in the UK, and he was interviewed at some AI conference, and they were talking about Nvidia, and he gave quite an interesting take on it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the valuations. It's fluctuating between Apple and then Nvidia one day, isn't it? But
Microsoft's up there as well, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
But those major technology players, I mean, is that a bubble? I mean, is it? Let's be fair. I mean, it doesn't last forever, these things, does it? I mean, you just got to look. I'm a bit of
Apple's
history, and I kind of watch these things and expect something's going to go wrong at some point.
Apple isn't, because Apple isn't a tech company. Apple's a consumer cyclicals business that have built. It's just a big marketing machine, right? And someone, it might have been Elon Musk, said, he said, no one's going to make any money out of AI. He said, the people that make money will be the people making the hardware that drives AI. So, which is why you'll probably see OpenAI will launch some kind of hardware application at some point, probably a phone or something. We've built in, which is, it's weird that they're doing the deals at the moment. Obviously, Apple doing the deals. Apple, it's a great deal for Apple, right? Because hardware is where you make the money. Because no one's ever said, oh, well, maybe some people, but no one ever says, oh, have you seen the new M1 chip in the MacBook? It's better than the last one, so I'm going to buy it. No, they say there's a new MacBook out and I need it. You don't need it. The spec difference. And for Apple, it's great, right? You just literally tweak the parameters on the chip.
The old picks and shovels argument.
It's the picks and shovels argument, yeah. It's just literally, for Apple, right? You just literally tweak the parameters on your back end, on your specs, to make it a little bit better, and you've got a whole new product again. You never really have to innovate for the rest of your life.
You still it, but I mean, just thinking about it, how often do you need to upgrade your mobile phone and things like that? Mine does everything it needs to do now. Do I need to really upgrade it? I mean, I don't know.
Have to? Well, you could use a Nokia First 210 if you really wanted. I mean, it works on the same shit as the data network.
Can you see this one? That I've got one on the list.
The old burner phone. That's
my burner phone. I found it it was in 1996 last time I used it in a wedding, and I found it in a jacket pocket, and it still had 2 bars on it.
Yeah.
But those phones didn't go wrong, did they? There was nothing. They worked, and they were bulletproof.
Well, they worked as phones, right? But we don't have phones in our pocket anymore, do we? We have like little mini computers and
laptops.
Yeah, it's a computer.
Everything else.
Right.
What a
All right. Well, now we've put the world to rights. I think we'll say on that note, we'll say Daniel G and James Sheehan of Priority AI. Thanks very much for your time.
Gents, thank you very much for having us. Been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net